Welcome to Positive Recovery MD. If you're listening, chances are you want to create happiness around you and thrive in your life. We're glad you're here and you've come to the right place. This podcast will inspire and motivate you to not merely survive your recovery journey, we'll give you the tools to build or strengthen your foundation to thrive and flourish in your life. Each week, we'll come together as a community to have authentic conversations around addiction, recovery, and what matters. Growth and progress, not perfection. All while developing positive habits for you to utilize in your life. To learn more, please visit positiverecoverymd.com to sign up to receive the daily positive interventions that we'll review, as well as gain access to exclusive Positive Recovery content available only to Positive Recovery MD listeners. All right, let's get started.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to another installment of Positive Recovery MD podcast with Dr. Jason Powers, Julie DeNova, and a special guest whose name is a little bit hard to pronounce. I know I'm going to murder this, but it's Hugo Vrsalovic or Vrsalovic?
Vrsalovic. Well, the Croatian way is Vrsalovic.
Yes, I think I've got some Eastern European background. You know, I'm related to Ivan Stravinsky Stravar and Abdullah Bubulmir. So I think we're going to go with the Vrsalovic. Anyway, he heads a company called Life is Wonderful. It's got a great story behind it. We'll ask you to touch on that. And he is first generation. He's got Croatian and
Bolivian.
Habla español.
Claro que sí.
Nice. Glad to have you on. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what your company is and how it started, and then tell us what it was like, what happened, and what's it like now, if you don't mind.
Welcome. Thanks for inviting me. The company is Life is Wonderful. And it all started last year at a retreat. But to give you a little context is I've been clean from alcohol since May 24th, 1997. So I got over 23 years. And I've been without a bet since April 13th, 2000. So over 20 years. No, so a lot of people in Houston have gone to 12-step retreats at Holy Name. And I've done them with alcohol and, of course, a lot with gambling. And so I've been going to them yearly since 2000. And so I was scheduled to do the overview on step one. And so that's what I was scheduled to do. And the guy who has almost 30 years, there was a guy from Austin, and he was doing step 2 and 3. He calls me up the Thursday night before and he goes, "Hey, we got to do something, maybe try something a little different." You know, all the people, they get all really motivated and they're excited after a retreat. They really, I want to really do recovery. I want to do the steps, or, get motivated to do so much. And then after a month, 3 months, 6 months, it kind of wanes. And so we were kind of debating how to make this one a little more special. So I said, well, I'll start off and I'll be talking about step 1. And I remembered I was listening. I love country music. I love all kinds of music, but I love old country music. And I was listening to this song by John Denver, the Thank God I'm a Country Boy. And in there, there's a line that says, "Isn't life but a funny, funny riddle?" And I go, I'm going to go start, because that's kind of like recovery. We walk into recovery, we're totally clueless. We don't even know what's kind of going on. Our heads is spinning because we're just either off a drug, alcohol, gambling, sex, whatever. And, our head's in a fog. So, we start off, everything's going well. And then sure enough, Saturday night, the guy who was overseeing the retreat goes, "Hey, the guy who's supposed to do the encapsulate step 12, he can't do it. Hey, do you mind just doing the wrap up?" And I said, "Okay. Well, let's do this." So I go to my room and I said, well, how can I make this different? How can I make this more memorable, sweet? So I went back and I rewrote all the 12 steps. And that's how I've kind of formulated this whole Life is Wonderful. The 12 steps explained. So I wanted to kind of make them more positive, kind of like what you're doing, as well as, something that's more memorable. So like step 1, I changed it to like, we believed a lie. And then, kept going. Like step 2 is we need help. Kept going on and on to like, step 9, self-respect, all the way to step 12, which is faith, hope, love. And I was trying to make them all concise. And that's how this all happened. It all happened at a retreat. It's one of those magical things. And I've always been in public speaking. I've always loved public speaking. So I said, last September, I said, well, why don't I just do a video? Because, instead of just trying to meet people one-on-one, and I got a lot of experience. I love to read. I love reading about the steps, all the different stories and stuff. So I said, I got all this knowledge. I can share some of it through a video on YouTube and see what kind of happens. And that's how I did my intro video. Then I did one on all the 12 steps, and I kept going and going.
don't you love when the muse sort of shows up? Kind of when you were in your hotel room and you just went from A to Z.
Right.
But let me ask you, I'm sure you raised more than a few eyebrows rewriting the steps, no?
Yeah, that was my question. I was like,
Well, the old timers, with old timers. So here's it. So again, like one of those things that seemed to keep falling into place. So this guy was doing something similar to a kind of a TED Talks. He called it the Genius Forum, him and some buddies up in DC in November. And so he had an audition to it, and I auditioned, I got in. And so I was trying to do something. So I did a speech called Gambling the Right Way. But I needed something. I didn't have a book. A lot of people had something to promote. So I said, well, I got to do something. So that's how I started the YouTube channel. But before that, I kind of needed, I had a woman who's been in with gambling and alcohol for many years, without alcohol for over 30 years. And she had a friend who had been out with alcohol for 30 years. And they were looking for some type of intern. And so she comes out, she ends up, she helps me out doing certain things around the office. But both her parents have over 30 years, doing the whole thing with Bill W. And sure enough, the first thing after she shared, like the one I did on step 1 with her father, he was like, well, I kind of, he was like hesitating. There's things I don't like. And like I said, you want to be innovative. You got to take either the congratulatory stuff with as well as with the people who are going to be naysayers. And I know some people that they either don't listen to it or they think that I'm doing something totally
sacrilegious.
Sacrilegious
comes to mind.
You cannot redo the 12 steps. I'm saying, if you look at my videos, I list the step the way it's written and the way then I rewrote it. I don't try to tell people, no, you have to believe it this way. I share what Bill W. and Dr. Bob did over 75 years ago. And I'm just adding a new twist, just trying to get people to think. That's all I want people to do is think and here's the thing. I am so grateful to be a compulsive gambler and alcoholic. I just want to share the beauty of the steps and especially the beauty of recovery, that we are given a gift. And that's the thing I want really people to get. People say, well, I can't believe I became an addict. No, that is your gift because you can actually now really help so many people.
Yeah, that's what I tell people is that if I didn't hit bottom and have to get in recovery and then stay there, thank God so far, I wouldn't have had to do the work of looking at everything I do. I tell people personally, and I heard this, so I don't take responsibility, but like every decision we make gets us closer to relapse or closer to recovery. And it's a process. But, we've lost the luxury of saying, fuck it, I'm going to go on autopilot. This doesn't matter that much. No, it completely matters, right? So I totally agree with that piece. Speak to some people who don't really get how difficult it is to get sober from pathologic gambling. That is, it came after you're stopping drinking. And I don't know, we say the road narrow. So getting in recovery from alcohol, you were doing the steps, but yeah, you had this other pretty bad addiction going on. Talk about that piece, because I'm sure that was a lot to overcome.
Okay, well, I'll tell you the story how I even got introduced to the whole 12 steps. That's usually how it happens. There's always someone that kind of enters your life. So I was dating a woman and we went to my family Thanksgiving. And all of a sudden, we leave and we had been together for about a year or so. And this is the first one I ever brought over to my family's Thanksgiving. And then we're driving a little way. And she goes, your family drinks a lot. And of course, to me, those are fighting words. I'm getting defensive. I'm like, what you're talking about. But it was almost like that little thing in the back of your head is going, is she right? Because, to me, it was normal. This is what we did.
Right.
So I went home and then, I thought about it. And then, of course, months later, if you listen to my story is, got in a really big fight with the same girlfriend. And it kind of clicked on me. I had to do something different because I was just tired. I was just, that whole tired of feeling miserable. But I was always still gambling. And when I went to my first meeting, I just sat there. And then it took a while, so it's almost like I could give up drinking while I still had another addiction. Mm-hmm. So it was and gambling was my number one addiction. I could gamble all the time. I could drink, more binge drinker. So about after a year and a half, I get into therapy. And then I'm in therapy for another year and a half. And then after 3 years, I realized My life is just, it's really at a point because it's almost like that slow progression. I read the whole big book. I read the 12 and 12. I've been to a lot of meetings. I've been in therapy now for a year and a half. I knew I had to do something different. So that's when I walked into a 12-step meeting about gambling, and I knew I needed help. And I knew I needed help specifically with gambling, because I know a lot of people who have other addictions. They want to deal with their gambling addiction with Bill W. It doesn't work. And then they look at all the differences, because the way the compulsive gamblers, because they're a breed by themselves.
What does that mean?
The main thing is if you look at the way they did the 12 steps compared to any other 12-step anonymous group, is they rewrote the steps, where the two people who they say one was agnostic, they took God out of step 2, 3, 5. So like step 5, instead of saying we admitted to ourselves, another person, and God, it's just we admitted to ourselves and another person. Now, that's a little odd. You really can't do a step 5 without a higher power or God. Step 12, it doesn't say spiritual awakening. And I go, to me is well, that's the whole reason we do the 12 steps, is to have this spiritual awakening to change our behavior. So, and I think that's what frustrated and why a lot of gamblers can never get clean, and why that program has struggled and has gotten better over the years as more people with other addictions have really talked about the steps, worked the steps, and try to change things. But that's really been their own detriment.
That's interesting to me to hear you say that, because you rewrote the 12 steps, or at least that's part of what you do, right? So having that experience as being a gambler and as, a person who attends Alcoholics Anonymous, it's interesting to me that you then did the same thing.
But I believe I did something different, because the one thing, if you look at anything that I talk about the two main things, that if we don't have an emotional base and a spiritual base, you're not going to get anywhere. So even though I did rewrite them, and I'm trying to, be a little more innovative, I still say the center of it is we've got to talk about the emotional disease, no matter what your addiction is. And we got to be able and openly talk about higher power, God, the great mystery, however you want to frame it. Because without those two things, doing other things is going to leave you frustrated, because you're never going to get to the heart of the problem. You can give up whatever drug you're doing or behavior you're doing, whether it's like sex or food. But if you're not getting to the crux and really looking at your own spiritual self and your emotional, how you react to things, then you're not going to get very far. That's just what I've seen over 20 plus years.
What did you do for a living or in general before you started this company recently? Were you a therapist or something? Because that sounds like something like a counselor would say.
No, I've been started out with a family business, industrial supply. So selling things like flow meters, industrial chalk, dealing with a lot of different breweries or plastic plants or cement plants, things that are producing products here, anywhere in the Americas, and
Right.
Still have that company. And then I just started this is because it kind of merged the two things that I love, public speaking and recovery. And it's almost like I found more of my purpose last year, and it kind of came in. And you talk about therapy I was in therapy for 7 years. I believe wholeheartedly that addicts in anything can benefit so much by doing a 12-step program because of the fellowship. We need that really fellowship, but we also sometimes need that extra medical help where a therapist can guide us through some of that either traumatic stuff, either the loneliness or the abuse or whatever we're dealing with, which almost kind of got us into the addiction, and to really open us up. Because I knew nothing about emotions until I walked into a therapist's office, and I had to start from zero. I was 31 years old, and people would ask me, "How do you feel?" And I kept thinking it was a trick question. Because I didn't know. I almost had to be shown a feelings chart, because I could pick anger. I knew anger. I knew rage. So I needed a lot of help. And that's where I think where you had to walk in and just realize I was able to at least recognize is that it's okay to not have the answers and to seek help from other people who've gone before you in 12-step meetings, as well as a lot of psychologists. I mean, I went to a psychologist
That's awesome. So I totally agree with you. Early on, I had an MD and I have pretty good insight into all things psychology, even before I became a doctor. That's just how my brain works. But I had to listen to people in the rooms of AA to figure out what I was feeling. Because when they shared their stories, I'd be like, that's what it means when I have that experience. And so it was great. Let's go to the questions before we dig into the PI. So let me ask you, what would you love to do for a living if you weren't doing this right now? What would you love to just have a stab at?
Public speaking. I love speaking. I've always, right out of college, I loved taking speech courses in high school and college, and I immediately got into Toastmasters. And Toastmasters, if people don't know about it, it's a public speaking organization that allows people to either learn the skill of impromptu speaking as well as prepared speaking. And then here's the most critical one, which actually goes into 12 steps, is how to evaluate a speaker. So that in turn allowed me to start once I started getting into 12 steps, starting to evaluate my own recovery. How to look at, okay, what am I doing?
Did I have a good opening? Did I have a good middle? Did I have a good closing?
Right. Because that's usually what people do when they go to a meeting. They don't listen to anybody. They just want to talk. Let me talk.
Enough about you. Now listen to me. Okay, what profession or what vocation would you hate doing?
I think if it had to do with something where you were just sitting at a desk the whole time, like something like insurance or something that seemed a little mundane, even though my degree from UT is in business and I concentrated in accounting, I always got in more into sales. So I just think just being stuck like in a cubicle, that always felt so constricted. I like to get up. I like to either be at the computer, but then do other things.
Got it. What's your favorite word?
Grateful.
And your least favorite word?
Broken. And I'd love
what
to
turns
talk
you
about
on?
It. Turns me on? Oh, the steps. They really do. I love recovering the steps.
And what turns you off?
Self-absorbed people.
And let's say assuming there's a God, when you die and you're at the gates, the pearly gates, and why does heaven have to be a gated community? Is it really that unsafe up there? I just wonder about that. But all these jokes or questions, you're always at the pearly gates. Why is it gated? So anyway, let's say you're at the gate, and what would you like to hear from God when you die?
Welcome. You've walked into paradise.
All right. Cool.
Well, thank you. So at Positive Recovery, we spend a lot of time, obviously, with the curriculum created by Dr. Jason Powers. At Positive Recovery, we use the Positive Recovery Daily Guide. And I'm going to go ahead and read our quote for today by Anonymous. And Anonymous writes a lot of things, but
Anonymous Jones.
This is fake it until you make it. Fake it until you make it is a common saying used in recovery fellowships. And it turns out that this cliche is scientifically validated. You can act as if you feel a certain way until you actually begin to feel that way. Studies demonstrate that when people's facial muscles are manipulated into a smile, for example, by being asked to hold pencils between their teeth, that they actually feel better. This finding indicates that even when an emotional state is clearly fabricated, a person's brain automatically recognizes that physical state and creates a feedback switch so that he or she experiences a genuine shift in mood. Sure, you generally smile when you feel good, but smiling itself can make you happy. Confidence breeds success, but acting confident produces confidence too. Standing upright produces energy. If nothing more than a temporary strategy to weather the storm of fear and doubt, acting as if you are already happy is an effective bridge between pain or anxiety and moving into tranquility. Even if faking it seems silly, keep in mind that it's infinitely more helpful than drinking, drugging, engaging in sexual indiscretions, gambling, and other forms of addictive behaviors. So for our PI today, and I smile a lot, so I got this down. So for today's PI, set an alarm on your watch or cell phone to vibrate every hour. And when the alarm buzzes, check your posture to make sure that you're standing or sitting upright. Put a smile on your face for a full 60 seconds. If you are in an environment such as a business meeting where this could be inappropriate, you may wait until you're in a more private setting. However, make sure you get in a full minute of intentional smiling each hour. At the end of the day, reflect on how you feel. Do you notice any improvement in energy or happiness? So did you do this, Hugo?
Absolutely. I did. I tried it out. I didn't do it every hour for like the whole, but I did it probably about 5 times like throughout the day. And I will say this, because I've given impromptu speeches, 1 minute is a long time, even 10 seconds holding that smile. But the one positive about it is after you got 20 seconds, you're trying to hold it, you're holding it, you're enjoying it. But once you finally get to 1 minute, and you let go, I felt this kind of like almost warm feeling go through your body. Like, oh, I feel good.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Dr. Powers, you can't keep that smile off your face. Did you do this?
I know. I don't know what it is. And it's not because I did. So yeah, when I did this, I thought, my God, 1 minute's too long. And then I remembered the dialogue I had with Alana around this. And at, 10 seconds is like, okay, that would be enough. And then you start to feel a little bit weird, 20, 30, 40 seconds. But then after 60 seconds, you do get that, like, it like either makes you goofy because it's like, oh my God, this is so weird. And then you also get that like relaxation, warm feeling. So I didn't do it when I was asleep, but I did do it every hour when I was awake.
Well, good. I'm glad. I'd hate to see you.
Like, damn this alarm. I'm not smiling. I'm going back to bed. Right. You did it, right? Are you doing it right now?
I'm doing it all the time, every day almost.
All right.
So it's one thing. It's funny because I get told that a lot. Like, you're always smiling. And I feel like, well, what else am I supposed to be doing if I'm not smiling? Like, I don't think I'd want to walk around with like a mean look on my face. So I think it improves the mood of other people as well. Like, it's not just about improving my own mood. I think that when I walk around with a smile on my face, that people generally smile back. And so that might kind of stop them in their tracks a little bit and get them to a different place, or maybe just shift their energy or their feeling as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's another one of those cliches, like smile and the whole world smiles with you. And that, to some degree, positive emotions are contagious and they spread through social networks, just like the flu. You know what I mean? So you are helping those around you.
It's funny too, because since COVID, I feel like I have to explain to people, like, I'm smiling behind my mask. Like, I just want you to know that,
Yeah.
And they'll say, oh, I can tell because, it reaches your eyes. But it's just funny to see, because I feel like I have to explain myself to people sometimes about that. But I'm just grateful to be able to have a lot to smile about, and super excited up in the hill country right now. I have like a weird background, but I am in hill country, and we are opening up Positive Recovery Centers Hill Country in probably the next 30 days. And so we got a lot of work to do, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And I promise I'll smile all weekend long.
Sweet.
So to our listeners out there, thanks so much for listening to Positive Recovery MD today. And Hugo, thank you for being our guest. Love to have folks visit you on your website. Can you tell our visitors where to go?
It should be easy and memorable. www.lifeiswonderful, all one word, .love. And there you'll be able to see all the different videos, and you can tap into the YouTube channel as well as Instagram, any of the stuff that I've been posting to try to share positive recovery and that there is another way.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Thanks for our listeners. And this is Dr. Jason Powers and Julie Denoflis signing off.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Positive Recovery MD. Don't forget to visit positiverecoverymd.com to sign up to get your daily positive intervention sent straight to your inbox. Be sure to subscribe to Positive Recovery MD on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcast to receive an automatic download when a new episode drops. And as always, if you or someone you know needs help, visit positiverecovery.com or call 877-4-SOBRIETY, which is 877-476-2743. We are here to help.